Can hear some of the thoughts there from Octalysis and Cure about how the results of yesterday and the level of play, even kind of, admitting that he feels like that kind of level of aggression and that not passiveness that I feel like we've been asking from this roster, and that level of consistency very much was able to show up today. The question is can they translate that over here again towards Octalysis? And I remain concerned. I do feel like Octalysis is a team that I don't feel like I gave enough credit immediately. It wasn't until I realized that all those losses were in the exact same weekend, and their opponents that they ended up stumbling to, and then realizing how dominant they are outside of that, that it goes, this team is one that has to be feared. Again, especially with that overlap on Infernal Shrines, if you're Team Freedom here, there's a lot to prove. And if they get this, I only can imagine the momentum they would be able to carry to Heroes Hearth.
Octalysis has a tremendous amount of confidence in themselves and their abilities, and it's justified. They've justified in Justine on that front line, but it's very much justified in their performance over time. The establishment of Justine being one of the top tanks in North America, Bud's obviously making the swap over to support some time ago. That's worked out really well for him. So when you look at the core elements of this and having Goku over there on the front line, the core elements of this team are still something that you could basically, let's bring in anybody. They just so happen to bring in two of the best when it comes to Kieran Dansky from Team Freedom. So I think confidence is there, but expectations seem like they have to be there for this team, right?
Yeah, I think Octalysis really expects to win today, but it could be anyone's game. I mean, speaking of Inferno Shrines, we played Octalysis on Inferno Shrines twice in the season. I think we went 1-1, but the games were grueling. They both went to like level 24, 25. That team understands how to trade on the map, and they will not go down without a fight.
All right, so then with that in mind, let's figure out where we're going for game number 1 here between the two teams. First off, it's going to be on Infernal Shrine, selected by Team Freedom. So with all the evidence kind of we presented beforehand here, it is going to be still opted in by the side of Team Freedom. Bans, Octalysis, ridding of Sky Temple, Curse Hollow being taken off the table for Freedom. So very understandable when it comes to the bans. But the biggest thing here is I feel like it's Octalysis. With that Sky Temple removal, taking one of those two go-tos and then still keeping their overlapping, which again, we've talked about. Everything points towards this should be their victory, or at least have a slight edge.
When we prepared that graphic, that was much earlier today before the bans ever were decided, the map pick. So Infernal Shrines looks like, look, one team's played it 10 times, the other played it 12. You know, they've played it against each other twice, both going over to Octalysis. So it's definitely a favorite there. The fact that Team Freedom, they're still willing to rely on that. They are like, forget history. We're bringing in a new element here, and it's something they definitely feel confident and strong on. So the fact that they're willingly picking it shows that they really appreciate that. But again, the Sky Temple ban, the biggest thing.
And with that in mind, Fan, can you, immediately when I see a team like this, an underdog, if you will, in this type of situation, willing to pick a map that is overlapping, you can make the argument that's where they're going to feel comfortable out of their map pool. But do you see any major argument to second pick is going to be more valuable on a map like Shrines, and that's why we see Freedom picking it?
It definitely depends on what their strategy is going into the game. There are several really strong picks on this map. So if they think getting, not the strongest hero, but the second and third best heroes, which is very possible, if they think that is their plan, they can definitely take it. I think Team Freedom, we might underestimate them a little bit on Infernal Shrines. They are no slouch when it comes to this map. So this map is going to be very important. Both teams feel comfortable on this map. Both teams do not want to give up a map that they feel comfortable on.
We're off to a hot start. We see the Garrosh ban saying that, look, Zugrug, we don't think you can do much else, and daring them to pick Diablo early, and they've done just that. I don't know if Octalysis was prepared for them to pick Diablo. They get the Medivh, so we know Dansky's going to be on that hero. Now the big question is, where does Cure kind of do his work? Where does he do his damage? But the fact that we saw a Diablo response instantly, and we wondered about the Stukov, this time we're getting the Malfurion, put the roots down where that is. But now, I mean, just instantly busting out this Diablo right away, you can see Octalysis, they had something in mind as this got started quickly, and now there's a little bit of a pause button in the draft.
Yeah, and Team Freedom knows exactly where they're going with this. These bans are very common bans, predetermined. You can guess that they're either going to ban the Garrosh, maybe the Medivh, but in the case they ban Garrosh, first pick Medivh, they insta-lock their next two picks. So it seems like Team Freedom is very prepared for how this draft is going.
Interesting adjustment coming out from Octalysis here to shift over. They pick up the Stukov with the response after the Malfurion. Makes sense before the second ban phase. But the Sonya, a little bit higher of value than we have seen as of late. The biggest thing here is just the fact that you're willing to pick a Sonya into a Diablo Malfurion, because typically Sonya is, to be honest with you, Diablo became into the meta for the first time ever in competitive history based on Sonya's good on shrines. Diablo's going to kill the Sonya on the shrine. MVP Black made that the thing, and that was why Diablo kind of rose to power. And so it's definitely very different than it once was, but it's just showing a lot of confidence here for Octalysis to be willing to commit to that much shrine control on her that early. Granted, they have a Medivh shield. That's going to be able to help out a lot in those early game skirmishes.
I really like the pairing of a Medivh with a Stukov. Stukov does really well in sustain, does have that bio kill switch, but it's on a much longer cooldown than most of your one-button saviors. Medivh kind of covers up a little bit of that hole with that force of will. See if that does come into play, especially against that Diablo. You can see the Hanzo hover here. Hanzo, Lutano, we talk about his hero pool a lot, Dreadnought. Hanzo, far and away his most played hero. We start now have to look at things like Genji. Greymane was already banned out. Does a Junkrat come in here for one of these teams right now, especially against the Medivh? But you've got Tracer, you've got Genji. Those are your two most common. Greymane was one of his top 4 most played heroes, so now all of a sudden all eyes from here on Lutano.
Yeah, and a majority of those heroes don't necessarily accent a map like Infernal Shrines in this position. I would argue that maybe you could make a justification for something of like a Genji, again, with that kill potential in the early game on the shrines, but when it comes to the actual shrine control itself, they aren't going to, have the same splash as maybe some of the other heroes on that backline are. So
I would like to see a Tychus pick up here. It seems like, as far as what Team Freedom is doing, they banned out the Greymane, which is one of the clear-cut good heroes at killing Diablo with the Cursed Bullet. Not only have they banned out the Greymane, they have the next DPS pick here, and they choose to go with Jaina Falstad. That's interesting. That means that Team Octalysis will have some kind of backline that can deal with the Diablo, but at the same time, Jaina Falstad, double mage, that it's very strong on the shrine, but more importantly, it gives them the option to ignore the shrine if they want to. If they know they can't win the first shrine, for example, because Diablo is scaling, they can choose to ignore it. Falstad will split soak, and they'll get equal value from that.
The Falstad, we actually saw it banned out yesterday on Sky Temple by Galefor, so obviously this must be something springing up in scrims here for Team Freedom. So now it's coming to light here in Infernal, and it does play to that global style to avoid a lot of that. And we've seen teams do that in the past where, depending on the shrine placement, they'll just push another lane instantly. A lot of teams do that, and most importantly, Octalysis has done something similar on a lot of battlegrounds. But now we still need somebody on the front line for Justin. And we got to wonder, Diablo, Garrosh already out. Do we see another safe pickup of a Johanna here?
The one concern I definitely have with the last rotation that we saw out of Team Freedom committing to that kind of double mage is into Medivh Sonya. Ooh, man. A lot to talk about with those last 2 picks, but touching on that, it's just having a double mage into Sonya is very good, especially at the later stages of the game with individual, amount of burst damage coming into her. When her survivability scales up, it's best into burst damage. So she already is actually looking at that going, I'm pretty comfortable with what backliners you have. Then you have the Medivh as well to be able to help with any kind of cross, healing problems that may exist on the Stukov front. I just feel like that is a high risk. Granted, yes, there is a lot going to be committed to that off lane. Can we get the global advantage, ignore the objective? But I just feel like Freedom put a lot on, risking a lot on the early game macro advantage, and maybe neglected their late game team fighting too much here with that rotation. We'll find out though.
I agree with that, and that is why I was stressing the Tychus. I feel like Tychus would have dealt with Sonya and the tank very well, not to mention Odin scales up insanely well, both on the shrines as well as late game team fights. The way this looks, it can win shrines, but the later the game gets, if Team Octalysis is on an even talent level, team fights are going to get harder and harder for Team Freedom.
A lot of Thrall as of late. That's going to round it out there. Arthas, the one thing that he struggles with is mobility. The one thing that Medivh does is make sure that you can get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So Arthas, I don't think would normally see play without the Medivh. I mean, he's kind of he's disappeared quite a bit from our current meta. I think Shrines is a good map for him in general. Obviously contributes to the clear. They have a lot of Shrine clear. We saw the early Stukov pickup. This is something we've seen Buds in the past go with the Alex Straza, which also complements to the clear, but I think teams starting to mold their drafts a little bit differently. So I really like Octalysis' draft. Again, the Medivh to deal with the Jaina lockdown, the Sustain to deal with Falstad poke with Stukov. I think there's a lot of good answers on the side of Octalysis.
My only concern at all with the draft on the side of Octalysis is just that Arthas might be vulnerable, Gul'dan might be vulnerable, but I've talked about it. With the Medivh Stukov, I think they'll be fine. They have enough tools to be able to deal with those type of things. It's just, let's be real here, Arthas can be a little squishy. Like, you get out too far, one good Jaina route might be the beginning of the end for the Arthas. It's just, can they tread lightly, dance around that proper? And if so, I agree that their composition is going to be very difficult to deal with here for Team Freedom. We got game number 1, ladies and gentlemen, again here between Team Octalysis and Team Freedom on Infernal Shrines. About to kick things off.
We're going to do it here with Octalysis, the formerly Team 12. They're going to be on the left here in blue, as it's going to be Dansky. He's going to be on that Medivh, of course. Cure, he's going to be bringing the pain on the Gul'dan. See Goku obviously being played there on that Sonya, Justin on Arthas, and rounding it out will be Buds on the Stukov.
And in the red is Team Freedom, trying to get that momentum over from yesterday here against Octalysis. First up is Collusion, supporting the team on Malfurion. Lutano is going to be on Jaina. We have Zugrug on the front lines on that Diablo. Nasmus on the Thrall. And last up here, Yoda will be the Falstad, a wingman Falstad at that, J-How.
Yeah, you know, this is the updated one. So lowering the cooldown on Lightning Rod by 3 seconds was the change here. Obviously, the wingman stacks, you get bonus damage on your Lightning Rod for every time you use one of those quote-unquote bribe stacks. There's Diablo already making a play instantly. Portal around. You know, we haven't been able to see a Medivh for Dansky in a long time. You oftentimes refer to him as one of the more terrifying ones that we get, but in our meta, a lot of teams, we see a lot of bans on Medivh, and justifiably so. We'll see how Dansky fares here against Team Freedom.
I personally have felt like Dansky is our best Medivh player in North America, even throughout last year when we had the kind of reigning terror of, you know, the Medivh Diablo from Roll20. You know, Glorong obviously making a huge showing there on the hero, but I feel like whenever we get Dansky on it, it is very much a treat on how the kind of Medivh functions, and we'll see how well the rest of the team of Octalysis can kind of move around through the portal as the 1-4 is continuing between the two. Small kind of pit stop here for Octalysis. Want to go ahead and pick up their camp. There's no invade signs, at least not yet here for Team Freedom, so it's likely going to be an easy pickup here. Slow start for the beginning, but understandable when we consider the compositions as well. If anybody is going to be, you know, forcing the hand on the laning phase, that's Team Freedom, which is funny because that changes the minute we talk about shrines. It's the exact opposite. If anybody's going to be forcing that hand, it likely is going to be Octalysis with Freedom, banking on, you know, that Falstad side soak with the Jaina Diablo, hopefully one shot.
I'm really curious now with the changes, Dredd, because I kind of thought that the hammering build might be the go-to. We've got a root, we've got a lockdown. Nasmus, he's going to buy a little bit of time. The slow there by Justin, but not enough. Zugrug, he's going to come in, try and bully around. Nice interrupt there as Cure able to get saved, as well as the portal coming in. But there's a lot of slows and a lot of roots in this game. But the point I was making, Arthas has potential block, his version with Rhyme. Sonya has block, her version there. Then you also think about the fact that Arthas has built-in physical armor. So the standard season marksman build doesn't make as much sense. I kind of wondered if we would get that Q-build hammering build because it is shrines, maybe helping there. But the single target focus on the Lightning Rod, very interesting pickup, even going in on that at level 4, which is interesting.
Nice invade attempt here from Justing, able to get zoned off for a moment with that shadow charge. Flip over is going to buy enough time to get the camp here for Zugrug. Arthas not going to use that Frozen Tempest to slow down anymore, and now the macro pressure here begins for Team Freedom. But yeah, I agree with you. You know, a lot of people, though we don't, Falstad has been out of the meta for a hot minute, and even when he was in the meta, this conversation doesn't happen too often, but his W, I don't know right now, but as according to, like, you know, a year ago, it was the highest single target damage spell that existed in the game.
If you get all the ticks.
Yeah, if every tick hits, it is insanely high damage and how much it does. And it's been not really touched whatsoever. If anything, it's gotten kind of stronger. So I'm excited to see that come out. And the biggest thing here is when I was talking about Arthas and his positioning and some of the risks there, that wingman and that single target damage coming out from this build on Falstad is going to make it that much more terrifying.
I'm curious what he'll go at 13. Giant Killer is still very effective because it ignores armor, because it is percentage-based damage, but I wonder with the cooldown reduction that you could potentially get.
Flow Rider's too good. It's so hard to give up because it affects every part of your kit. It's not even just, you know, the one. You get your barrel, everything like so much faster with that talent, though. Falstad is getting that side soak in the mid lane for now, but now a lot of attention put up towards top as he's going to make the rotation in. Portal set down. Goku taking a bit of damage. There's the first force of will. The lurking arm buys a lot of time onto Zugrug trying to kite out, but Arthas has the slows there. First blood over to Octalysis.
The amount of slows between the lurking arm, between the slow from Arthas, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get past. You know, there's a little bit of action going on the left. There's that Shaman camp still pushing. Instead, they're looking to fight. You can see the other thing that complements Dreadnought is the corruption stacks. As you can see now, Octalysis is starting to take the lead. Corruption already up to 14 stacks here. You get that thing going. All of a sudden, we're looking at early damage coming out as Cure doing a pretty efficient job so far. But yeah, there's some of the early damage that actually came in from that Shaman camp. They were really focused on the team fight and ended up losing a bit there in the lane.
Yeah, one thing to think about as well that we didn't touch up on too much in the draft is that Arthas is one of the best, you know, kind of counter warriors to Diablo, if you will, purely based on that body blocking capabilities with the Frozen Tempest. Because both of their models are so big, by having that movement speed debuff on Zugrug, who, by the way, getting that debuff once more, going to drop here in the top lane. Howling Blast not going to connect there. Good dodge by Lutano. He will be able to make it out here, but this first Ford definitely taking a beating.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point. That's a very, very good point to bring up when we consider how well Arthas functions into that. Again, with the Medivh there, you can just complement all of that by getting in at moments you probably don't normally get into. We'll see if we can catch the fall stat here. Do we get the predicted? He gets it. There's going to be a land. There's going to be the lurking arm going down, and that's going to be the corruption hitting. That play is what you see here in HGC is Justin barely clipping. You knew that he had to barrel roll at some point. Not able to make it out of there. Almost picture perfect there by Justin.
Yeah, it was very well done. And for anybody who's not a Falstad main at home and wondering how do you get caught in that, Falstad has 0 iframes throughout the entirety of barrel roll. There is no opportunity to dodge that. If it lands anywhere through that animation, it will stop you dead in your tracks. So very good job there by Octalysis abusing that. And I mean, hitting that Howling Blast, it was huge there. It's still only at 13 stacks. So it was even more impressive in the fact that that wasn't just a, hey, if you get hit on the trail of my Howling Blast, you're still going to be stuck there. Just perfect accuracy from Octalysis, and part of the reason they got the momentum going into their favor so far here. It's not too far out of control, though. Freedom, again, does have that kind of, you know, macro sense with their composition, but I will say that we, you know, talked about it, my concerns, and it was a little bit back there by Fan, that if this game gets to the even footing at the later stages, the team fights are going to get very terrifying in favor of Octalysis. And right now, Octalysis is winning the early game, winning on really all fronts here as they get another invade.
They're going in. There's going to be the root. The Horrify goes down, and that's going to be Thrall getting the death on the side of Team Freedom. You know, I'm sitting here. I'm looking at Falstad. I have not seen this one before. Level 7, getting 2 extra strikes plus the extra base damage of 25%. So really going into that single target, I really wonder how that's going to come into play. The reason we don't see this often, Dread, is moments like that right there.
Yeah.
How do you get Wingman stacks if you don't have the Boomerang? Because Boomerang gives you a lot of single target burst, but it also gives you wave clear, so you can obtain those strikes a little bit easier. So a trade-off here. I have not seen this, maybe, especially in the new iteration of Wingman. This is going to be interesting.
Now, if that off-lane, you know, kind of matchup for the Falstad was a Thrall, I would look at that and I would kind of say that might be a realistic option. We talked about some of the intricacies and ways you can win the 1 versus 1s on the top half of the map, but Sonya is one of the few off-laners that is pretty well-rounded. She can out-trade a majority of the heroes. She can wave clear a majority of the heroes. She doesn't really have to commit to one or the other, and because of that wave clear you see Goku kind of flaunting right now, Falstad without Boomerang gets bodied in the wave clear department compared to the Sonya. That is not something we normally say with that Boomerang. And I'm immediately going, that Falstad split soak macro strategy,
it's not there.
But not committing to a Boomerang says you don't have a macro strategy. This team fight has to be committed to. And again, we said, you know, on paper, this looks like Octalysis wins team fights.
It's going to be an interesting one. You can see Falstad up at the top. Did use the Wingman stacks up there. He's going to try and clear that, the single target damage. You can see the Lightning Rod going out onto that Shaman. So that will take care of that. That does give the advantage now to Team Freedom. Now he's going to fly down, look for a fight. He's coming in. We're going to see if Team Freedom can turn this around before level 13 hits here for Team Octalysis.
We're about to find out. 13 of those skeletal defenders, as we said. Zugrug looking to march up. Howling Blast is dropped, but nothing to be gained for now. Shaman Camp eventually will be a problem on top half if we see a flip onto Goku. Great force of will right as the Blizzard comes down. 0 damage gained. 26 skeletal defenders here still towards Octalysis.
Nasmus threw down the Earthquake, trying to buy time. Water Elemental out as well. Massive shove, going to buy a little bit of space. I believe that is also Tranquility in the middle of that. So all the heroics are being used here, but Team Freedom finds themselves very far behind. And when you have a Gul'dan on the other side, it is incredibly hard to come back from. But they're going for the single target kill. Goku, however, lives. The Mighty Gust buying a little bit of time. And now Team Freedom having to retreat. Is this going to be Punisher number 2 going over here to Octalysis?
Octalysis will be able to siege up here, surely winning the race at 13, but there is a bit of a conundrum there with the Shaman Camp on the top half. Nobody gonna cater to that. And also, this is something we don't talk about because we don't see Falstad builds like this that often. Though it doesn't have the wave clear, it's got the single target siege. Like it can take the keep very, very fast compared to the other. It just can't rid of the minion wave. So having a Shaman Camp backing you up, this Falstad split is actually gonna gain a lot for Freedom.
He doesn't have the cooldown reduction at 13 yet. He should have that momentarily. When that comes in, you burn everything you've got, but Octalysis is going in. Buds eats a lot of damage. Zugrug not able to get the collapse onto it. Falstad has made his way back. The keep now under assault.
Yeah, leap in. Punisher got to get the follow-up. Nice Howling Blast from Justin. Goku taking a bit of time there. Force of Will is on cooldown now, but it's not going to be capitalized on by Team Freedom here. Is that Punisher still alive? Goku takes the portal out, and just damage onto the keep is all she wrote here for Octalysis when it comes to the siege. But they've gained a lot. This is I mean, again, that's the second Punisher of this game, and the fact that we're talking about keeps already shows the tempo these teams are setting.
I mean, if you're saying we traded a keep wall for a keep wall, Team Freedom's like, okay, we got it, right? You know, it's not the same level that we saw before, but you also look on the side of Octalysis, 34 stacks on those corruptions, 37 on that built-in Master's Touch. So close to getting the big talents, the big baselines that give you that extra damage. So we'll see if that comes into play. 19 stacks also for Arthas on his root at level 1, meaning that when he finishes that, everybody in line is potentially going to get it.
End up committing to the full Lightning Rod from beginning to end here for Freedom. No Flow Rider there, just bonus damage for each subsequent, you know, kind of W that hits the target. Again, it's all about how much can we get that one shot. I feel like Arthas might be at a position to be able to get vulnerable possibly with this, but again, it just hasn't been with the Medivh and the Stukov.
The ticks aren't like fast.
Yeah,
and then
they are slow.
You put down your army, you can basically heal up every couple of seconds versus that, plus you have the Force of Will, plus you have the portal, plus you have that. I would have loved to have seen the cooldown reduction between 13 and 16. Instead, things a little bit different here. And again, it's something I have not seen. I don't know if, especially the new wingman, right, with this cooldown reduction, it's something nobody's seen. With the 3-second reduction, it's not a major change, but this is very new to me, so we'll see how it plays out.
The major argument, again, that I can see with it is just all about that ability to blow up the front line. That normally is when, you know, the small period of time where people were kind of dabbling with alternative false that built its way in the past. What the thought process was, willing to commit to it. But Octalysis here is still quite in the lead here with their 4 kills to the 0 of Team Freedom. They will be able to time their Shaman camp pretty well if they would like to with that top camp, but because the because the shrine itself is spawning in the northern lane, the biggest advantage to keep track of is all about experience. And the race to 16, pretty significantly won, but Freedom will be able to bank on 16 themselves thanks to the global and the fall stat.
The biggest threat is the initiation of Zugrug on the Diablo, which is why you see the Medivh. The Medivh doesn't care about the rest of the team generally. I mean, he's in the general vicinity, but his main priority is keeping track of the Diablo, making sure the Diablo doesn't come in for the ganks, doesn't initiate team fights. And as long as Medivh stays on that, it reminds me of when we saw Kerrigan on Tomb of the Spider Queen last year around BlizzCon. Just see you hovering around the biggest threat hero that can initiate and really get things kickstarted. So a little over Zugrug for quite a while now.
There's the camp timing. 16 will, in fact, be here again. Falstad going to pick that up on the bottom lane and then get the flight up. This fight is really important for Team Freedom. I feel like this has got to be the opportunity. Right now, so far, the only victory that Team Freedom has had in this game is that Shaman camp split pressure. And they need to find something here. The the camp or shrines is going to be started.
Think about the fact that Shaman Camp took out that keep wall. So if Team Freedom does win here, they're going to start it quickly. Earthquake's going down. A massive shove has sent Diablo flying. Oh, there's the APOC right after the Mighty Gust, Dread.
With the Earthquake hitting 4 members, but it didn't net a single kill or even really that much damage. Portal's going to be taken here. Nice Ancient Spear landing onto Yoda, and that's going to be enough damage. Now look at Justin slowing all the retreat there of Team Freedom. Land the Howling Blast on a collusion. Horrify's going to drop. Now splitting Nazmus. Zugrug, he goes back in onto Goku, gives him the flip, but it's not enough. The kills and the heals are there. 3 for 0 so far in this fight. Portal taken here, but Octalysis, they definitely reign supreme in this skirmish.
There was so much committed to the early part, but that massive shove, Dread. The APOC was great because they got that. Lutano, he's going to go down as well. But the fact that that massive shove sent Diablo in a spot that he could not follow up. He has that 13-16 combo of that devastating charge. He got 1. He did not get that second, and he went flying.
That combo normally has to be set up against a wall, right, with the Gust into an APOC. But it's possible with this composition to get away with that because they had the Earthquake slow at this exact same time. The Pulse came in, the APOC's on the ground, nobody has the mobility to be able to escape. But when that area is right in that kind of little chokehold just past that Fog of War too, where half the targets couldn't even be seen, it just wasn't possible to get the trade up that they wanted. Arthas is finishing the rest of the shrine, but Collusion might be able to get a root here as Goku out maybe too far.
Yeah, I thought they might have overcommitted quite a bit. You could actually see the Lightning Rod Rod doing a significant amount of damage every single time that ticked onto Goku. The initiation was there, but Medivh, Portal, going to get him back to safety. Justin, he's going to go back. He's tapping for mana dread. They're not just going for keep here. They might potentially go for game. They get one pick, they get two. All of a sudden, we're looking at Octalysis taking a 1-0. A keep at this point, because of the damage already done, should be
second keep.
Should be potential 2 keeps, yes. There's a lot that Octalysis can do here.
Yeah, it really is just, this is going to be kind of testing the waters, right? They're going to approach the keep, look for Punisher Leap 1, look for a follow-up. Then in the downtime in between, siege up. Then whenever you see the reposturing of Freedom, question if you can get another kill, follow up on the next Punisher. And then if you haven't got anything in that time and it looks grim, just take the other keep, walk out of the situation. But if you have net kills, look to end the game. There's the leap, the follow-up. They end up getting the Horrify, but the Gust buys enough time. So Zugrug survives. Again, buy a little bit of time, then look for the reinitiation here between the two.
Justin almost had enough out of that death coil, but it wasn't. Now the keep under assault should go down here momentarily. Now what more can they get? There's going to be the jump onto 3 people. The spear goes in for Goku, but now Goku's in trouble.
They actually make the move for the core. Every single member of Team Freedom here, or excuse me, Octalysis is actually going to start. Dansky is falling extremely low. APOC combo's going to come in, hit all 4 members there. The stun against the wall. Dansky first to drop, 60% on the core. Goku doing his best here to get all the damage. The seismic slams are coming in. Cure falling here. Now 20%, 2 members of Octalysis. Can they do it? They do, ladies and gentlemen. And game 1 goes to Team Octalysis.
You know, you look at it, Dread, it's 18-17 or something after that big team fight in favor of Octalysis. Arthas, clear that. It's a lot of things you see differently than your general hero league. Yes, we got the Punisher, let's just push with it. But Justin's like, hold on, there's potential, we can do a lot with this. I'm gonna Hearth, slow play it, regroup. You go all in. They fully committed no matter what. They knew in their mind they had a chance to go in. So they timed it, waited, everybody tapped, came back at full strength, ended up working out.
Fan, thoughts on the last game?
I just really don't like the fact that the Falstad went with the full W build. I thought that their win condition was going to be very heavily reliant on giving up the Shrine and having the Falstad gain level advantage through the off soak, through pressuring double soak plus global. But the problem is, without Boomerang, you can't do that. Without Boomerang, like, he could not even clear the waves at his keep. He literally just soaked until they got a talent, and then he went to the fight. And at that point, basically Freedom's game plan was, we're going to fight every single Shrine with the full W build Falstad, which would have been okay if they could win the fights, but there's absolutely no way you can win those fights, in my opinion. If they wanted to go for the full-on fights, they needed something heavier hitting, like the Tychus or something. But yeah, I think Freedom's win conditions were not there that game.
I agree, and it raises a lot of concern for me now, knowing this is game number 1 between these two teams, right? And that is now, we talked about it, the only overlapping map between the two sitting right now. And though we did weight that in favor of Octalysis, it's mainly the draft approach and strategy approach coming out from Freedom that scares me, because it goes, that was the most comfortable they should feel in the entirety of the series, and we already see a lot of diversity and kind of panic towards that macro sense, which, again, in their weakest form during those kind of downfall, if you will, that was what we saw, those kind of symptoms coming to light. So it's very concerning, and I wonder if Freedom, you know, has the ability to identify what that is and be able to shift it on the fly here, because Octalysis, they didn't let up. Again, if we looked at that game, it was 8-3 in kills. All 3 kills were on the core rush at the very end. There was not a single kill happened actually in favor of Team Freedom other than Octalysis going, we want to end this game.
And that was Octalysis. They prepped the entire thing. I mean, just the amount of work that they did prior to that, I think, set up so much. But again, every team fight that we saw, I mean, without the Boomerang, it surprised me just as much. I feel like everything about that build is probably a little bit more forgivable, but Boomerang, I feel like you just missed so much. You can't clear the waves, as you were saying. When you can't clear the waves, you can't get the stacks.
If you don't take Boomerang on Falstad, you might as well have picked Brightwing. That's how I feel, like, most of the time, because he's equally as weak within the lane itself in terms of the control he provides and like how little she does. It's just like, it is a global, but if a global can't out clear the lane, then it's not really a global. We talked about that yesterday. If you have superior wave clear, it's a pseudo global and kind of can make up for that.
Now, to be fair to Team Freedom, I do think they were winning up until like halfway through the first Shrine. So what happened on the first Shrine was they were actually ahead in the Shrine minions 4v5. And Falstad was off-soaking the off lane. So they were ahead in off-soak, and they were ahead in the Shrine fight. But Zugrug started a fight where he actually got a favorable trade 4v5 at first. What he didn't account for was the Falstad fly was so late that he died before Falstad even landed. So at first they were winning on both sides, but because the fly and the initiation were a bit mistimed, they fell behind in the first round, and after that they just could not win any of the fights. And I do have a replay of one of the last fights of that game.
All right.
So we can hop in real quick here. So this is the last shrine fight basically before the game ends. And if we could pause for 1 second here, what you're going to see is a really good initiation by Zugrug, but also good counterplay by Cure. So Cure goes over here, he hugs the wall and intentionally baits Zugrug to charge him. You're going to see Zugrug move over here. He sees this wall angle. If you're a pro player, you know Diablo is looking for that wall angle. Kier is unable to be wall charged here, but he's going to try and bait it because Buds is going to shove him straight back out of the fight after this, so we can play on. Zugrug actually plays really well after this as well. You know, so does Yoda. They get a really sick Gust into APOC combo, but the problem is, what is the follow-up? So Earthquake happens here. The shove happens. Gust into an immediate APOC, and I believe that is a 4-man stun. But what is your follow-up? What is your damage? Imagine if you had an Odin here while those 4 targets were stunned. You might actually be able to win the fight. But even after that, look at how fast Yoda goes down. You know, they don't have the team fight necessary. If you're going to be team fighting every shrine, they picked a really weak backline for that.
I love that you could see the pings of like, help, help, help. This is calculated. The bait was definitely there. So that's fun, right? It's kind of like, all right, you know, we know what's going on. The fact that you ping it and you're like, this is easy. Feels bad.
I
man.
can absolutely tell you as a support, if I am Collusion in that situation and confidently was like, yeah, you can bait this and I've got the shove that will win the fight, I mean, that feels really good as a support. Be like, you execute in, be like, there's the shove, be like, fight, boys, the game's over. We got this. Like, we can easily make the punishment there. It was cleverly done there by the members.
It's really good to see that kind of communication between a top-level team, too, because if you're Kier there and you're intentionally letting him get a wall stun on you, he's level 16. If the Stukov does not get that shove there, he can get a Q, EQ, you're dead. Like, the fight's over. So that is a high level of trust, and it works out.
Yeah, the